I'm not a hardcore DBZ fan. I don't have heavy nostalgic bias towards Dragon Ball or Toriyama. Even so, being as objective as possible, Dragon Ball Z in the late 80s still has some of the best action comic art I've seen in comics 30 years later. In this video, I will break down the traits and techniques that make it stand the test of time. Toriyama's art hit its prime in the Frieza arc, so I'll be focusing on Goku vs Frieza for my references. The first technique that Toriyama uses is space. Space is important because if the panel is large, the characters can also be large, the shot can be zoomed in much closer, and more details can be fit into the art. Doing all of this will make the shot in the panel have more power and presence. There are several panels that take up half the page in the action scenes. That might be seen as wasteful if you're trying to tell your story in the least amount of pages possible, but the benefit is a manga fight scene that can stand strong without an anime. It is very important to zoom in as much as possible. A lot of these panels zoom in until you can see both characters' full bodies. Sometimes they zoom even closer for more energy, like when Frieza elbowed Goku towards the end. The panel cuts off at the waist, but it allows the characters to be really close and kinetic. The second technique that his art uses is great poses. I've talked about this in my recent videos, but great poses have the characters leaning into them. This can mean leaning forward for a punch, leaning back for a kick, leaning forward after being punched in the stomach, or leaning back after being punched in the face. Look at Frieza kicking Goku in the face. Frieza's leg is so extended that it looks like it bends the wrong way. Goku's head is all the way back to sell the hit. Goku taking Frieza's elbow looks even better. The way his head is arched as far back as possible and his arms dragged behind really make it look like he got hit in the chin from below. In Goku's Kaioken punch, Frieza's head looks like if it turns any more, his neck will snap. Goku's Super Saiyan punch has a very similar panel composition, but this time, Frieza's head is moving to the side rather than turning away. Frieza's torso is also leaning to the side, but his neck and head are leaning even more. Look at Goku's combo right after. The way he leans back for the wind-up makes his body shaped like a C. In the double-handed smash, he's leaning all the way down, with his legs split just to sell the pose even more. There are many great examples. Whether a character is throwing an attack or receiving one, the pose really embodies the full kinetic force of the attack due to the way they lean into their poses. A simple cheat code for leaning is to point the chest and the pelvis in different directions. It doesn't work for every pose, but if you're struggling to figure out how to exaggerate the lean in a specific pose, try differentiating the chest and pelvis directions. The third technique is camera angles. If I draw a cube from the front, it will look like a flat square. The same goes for the sides, bottom, and top. If I draw a cube from a 3/4 angle, two sides of the cube will be showing and it will look more 3D. Toriyama often draws his action scenes from one of these in-between dynamic angles rather than flat and simple angles. There are flat angle panels, like the tail whip or Super Saiyan elbow. When you compare those to the panels with dynamic angles, you can see the difference. The dynamic angles just look more interesting, and it's often because of triangle formation, a technique I discovered in another video. Foreshortening is when objects closer to the camera look bigger. This technique shows artistic skill and looks interesting. By combining dynamic camera angles with foreshortening, you can get triangle formation, which always looks really cool. It makes every attack look significantly better. The main way the formation is used is by using one-point perspective, by placing the vanishing point on one side of the page, and placing the character closest to the camera on the opposite side. By placing the second character in the middle of the first and the vanishing point, it creates a triangular shape with the vanishing point as the tip. The characters are different sizes due to foreshortening, and the action looks like it's popping out of the screen. The camera is placed behind the action, but slightly to the left, right, or top, so that we can see both characters. This can be done with just one character, like when Goku and Frieza are flying towards the screen. The speed lines in the background help you see where the vanishing point is, and it makes the action pop more. The final technique is clarity. In every single panel, it is extremely clear what is happening. Toriyama may not have had the most creative attacks and choreography, but he made up for it with the untouchable readability of his attacks. I don't think there's ever been a DBZ action panel where I had to stop and ask myself what was happening. All four of these techniques have been used in manga like One Piece, Naruto, and Kagurabachi, but DBZ still stands out because it mastered space and clarity like no other. There are some panels in modern manga that are hard to immediately understand, and there are some panels where I'm left wishing the artist made it bigger to place more importance on it. I don't think I've seen another 2000s manga make a single action panel take up half or 2/3 of the page, chapter after chapter, like Prime DBZ. In conclusion, DBZ's action art stands the test of time because of its panel space, kinetic poses, dynamic camera angles, and clarity.